You have been doing this for 3 years. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 9 until 1, the St. Columba's Parish Hall on Renfrew Street. You know where the float tin is kept. You know that the back left wheel on the large trolley has never tracked straight, and you compensate for it without thinking. You know the smell of the place before the lights come on. Cardboard and tinned tomatoes and something underneath that you have never been able to name and have stopped trying to. You arrive at 8:45 because you have always arrived early. This was true when you were teaching, and it is true now. You unlock with the key on the hook inside the green box. You go in, you switch on the strip lights one by one down the left wall, and you wait for them to stop flickering. It is the 14th of January. Outside, it is not yet light. Before the food bank, you woke at 6, which is when you always wake now, regardless of what the alarm says. You lay still for a while in the gray of early morning in January, which is not dark and not light, its own thing, neither one nor the other. You have been in this house for 19 years. You know the ceiling well. You made porridge because that is what you eat on shift mornings. You stood at the hob and stirred it and listened to the radio. The radio has been on every morning since Michael left. It is not for company, you would tell Carol if she asked. It is just for sound, which is different. Carol would say, "Is it though?" Carol would probably be right, but you do not need her to be right about everything. You ate the porridge at the kitchen table. You rinsed the bowl. You put on your coat and your good flat shoes, the ones with the grip, because the parish hall floor is slippery when wet, and it is always wet in January, tracked in from outside, and you know this from 3 years of Tuesdays and Thursdays. You know where the mop is kept. You know who makes the tea and how strong they make it, and whether to ask for one. You drove the 12 minutes to Renfrew Street. You parked in the same spot you always park in, the one beside the wall that gives you extra room on the driver's side. Small habit, built one Tuesday at a time. The choreography of a life that runs smoothly because you have made it run smoothly, because the alternative is not one you have been willing to examine too directly. You are inside now. The strip lights have stopped flickering. In 45 minutes, the other volunteers will arrive. In an hour and 15 minutes, the doors will open. His name was Raymond. You don't know his last name. This is not unusual. Most of the regulars you know by first name only, and some not even that. And this is by design, a boundary that was explained to you in the induction and that you have maintained without difficulty. First names only. Don't ask questions they haven't volunteered. Don't follow up outside the building. These are the rules, and they are good rules, and you have kept them. What you know about Raymond, he was somewhere in his late 60s. Possibly older, it was hard to tell. He wore the same green anorak every week, regardless of weather. He came on Tuesdays, not Thursdays. He took tinned fish when it was available, and didn't take it when it wasn't, without complaint either way. For the first 8 months, he said thank you and nothing else. Then one Tuesday in March, he told you his wife had died. You said you were sorry. He said it had been 4 years and he still wasn't used to the quiet. You said you understood. You don't know if you did. After that, he talked more. Not much. Small things. The pigeons on his windowsill. A program he'd watched. His wife had grown tomatoes on the balcony and he tried once and failed and hadn't tried again. You listened. You asked the right questions. You are good at listening. 31 years in a classroom teaches you when to speak and when not to. He stopped coming in September. One Tuesday he wasn't there, and then another Tuesday, and then a third. You asked the coordinator, Janet, if she knew anything. She checked the records and said he wasn't on any follow-up list, and there was nothing she could do without a referral, and you said, of course, that's fine, and went back to your station. You have been here for 4 months since then. Every Tuesday. The September Tuesdays and the October Tuesdays and the November and December ones, and now January. You have stood behind the table and weighed out portions and said good morning and smiled, and you have not said his name out loud since you asked Janet. In December, you asked Janet again. You went to the back office at 11:30 and you said his name, Raymond, Tuesday regular, green anorak. You hadn't seen him since September. You said, I know there isn't a mechanism. I just want to know if there's a note on him. Janet is a practical woman. She has been running this food bag for 9 years and she has the efficiency that comes from caring genuinely but not sentimentally. She looked him up. She said, I'm sorry, Margaret. There's a note here from October. Natural causes. You said, thank you. You said, I'll get back to the station. October the 3rd. The dreams had started in October. You have not mapped the dates precisely because you are not sure you want to. The dreams started in October, not nightmares. You want to be precise about this, because nightmare is the wrong word, and the wrong word does something you don't want it to do. He is just there, at the edge of things. Present the way a piece of furniture is present in a room, noticed, and then not noticed, there whether you look or not. In the first dream, you were in the car park of a Tesco you used to shop at before you moved, the big one on Maryhill Road, and he was standing at the far end near the trolley bays with his green anorak and a carrier bag that looked heavy. You started walking toward him and the car park kept extending. Not dramatically, not nightmarishly, just the way distances work in dreams, where you walk and the space between you and the thing you're walking toward doesn't reliably decrease. You woke up before you reached him. You lay still in thought, my mind processing an unresolved concern. This was in October, and you did not yet know he was dead. In November, the dreams changed. He started appearing in places that belonged to earlier parts of your life. The corridor of your first school in Stirling. Your parents' garden in Falkirk, the one with the apple tree that never gave good apples. You sitting in a cinema and Raymond in the back row, not watching the film, just sitting. In these dreams, you didn't walk toward him. You watched him from where you were, aware of him at the edge of things, and he never looked at you. What you noticed, lying still after these dreams, the emotion was not grief exactly. It was closer to the feeling of having left something behind in a place you can't go back to. That feeling of loss that belongs to the irreversible small thing, the thing that wouldn't have mattered if you'd caught it in time, the thing that matters now, precisely because the time has passed. In December, after Janet, the dreams fixed into one version. He is in your kitchen. Standing at the far end near the back door facing it, the green anorak, the carrier bag on the floor beside him. You are sitting at the kitchen table. He doesn't turn around. You don't speak. You sit there and he stands there and neither of you does anything. Then you wake up. You wake up and the kitchen is empty and the gray January light is starting and you lie there. You haven't told Carol about the dreams. Carol is your oldest friend and you speak every Sunday evening and you tell her most things. You told her about Raymond stopping in September. You told her you were concerned. She asked if you'd looked into it further and you said there wasn't a mechanism for that, which is true, and she said that must be hard, and you agreed. What you didn't say, that you looked up the address on his file, that you'd driven past it twice, that you hadn't stopped because you didn't know what stopping would mean. In November, Carol asked how many years you'd been doing the volunteering, and you said, 3 years come February, and she said, do you think you'll do it forever? You said, I don't know what else I'd do. She said, that's not the same thing as yes. You said you supposed it wasn't. She said, I worry sometimes that it's filling something that should be filled differently, not the volunteering itself. just the way you talk about it, like it's load-bearing. You said everything is load-bearing when you live alone. She said, I know. That's what I mean. You changed the subject, and she let you change it. Raymond was Tuesday. He was always Tuesday. For 2 years, he was part of the load-bearing structure of your Tuesday, and you did not know that was what he was until he wasn't there anymore. And now the structure has a gap in it of exactly his shape, and something has noticed the gap. Carol has started asking different questions on Sundays. Gentle questions, careful, the kind you recognize from when you used to ask them of parents whose children you were worried about. How are you sleeping? Are you getting out enough? Is the volunteering still feeling good? You answer accurately. You say the volunteering is still good. This is true and not true at the same time, and you are not sure which part is which. The scales are second-hand. They were donated 3 years ago by a catering supplier that was closing down. Commercial grade, accurate to 5 grams, a flat metal weighing surface, and a small digital display on a neck that tilts. You use them to portion out rice and pasta and dried goods when the pre-packed parcels run short. The first time the display showed your name, it was a Thursday in November. You were weighing out rice. The display read 847G, and then it read Margaret, and then it read 847G again, and you stood there for a moment, and then you finished the portion and moved on. You thought, fluorescent whites do something to digital displays. You thought, I am tired. You thought, tired people see things like this. The second time was the following Tuesday. Lentils, 340G, and then your name, and then 340G again. You looked around. The other volunteers were at their own stations. Nobody was watching. You did not tell Janet. You did not tell Carol on Sunday. What would you say? The scales are showing me my name. There is no sentence that follows that one which doesn't end with someone being worried about you, and you have spent 3 years constructing a life that doesn't require people to worry about you, since your husband left and the children moved and you took early retirement and built this, the Tuesday and Thursday shifts, the structure of it, the place you are needed, and you are not going to dismantle it by telling someone about a digital display. By December, it was happening most Tuesdays. Not every time you used the scales. Not on Thursdays, or only once on a Thursday. Just when you were the one weighing. You started being careful about when you went to the scales, volunteering to do other tasks, letting other people do the portioning. Janet noticed and asked if your shoulder was bothering you again, and you said yes a bit, and she said of course not to push it. You started going to the scales when you were alone in the back store, just to check, just to see what it said when no one was watching and you weren't weighing anything and the display was just sitting at 0. It said 0. It said your name. It said 0. This is what you remember about the last Tuesday Raymond came in. He was later than usual. Most regulars arrive in the first hour, and he was always in the first half hour, same time every week. But that day was after 11, before you saw him come through the door. He looked smaller somehow, though he was the same height. He had the green anorak. He took the basket and moved along the table, and you smiled at him the way you always did, and you said something, you can't remember what, something about the cold outside, and he looked at you. He didn't say anything. He just looked at you for a moment longer than he usually did. You thought he was going to say something. He didn't. He finished his basket and you said, "See you next week," and he nodded and he left, and you went back to the work. You have replayed that look many times. In October and November and December, and now January, you have turned it over, examining it the way you used to sit with a child's essay looking for what was underneath the sentences. You are not sure what you were supposed to do with it. whether doing something was possible, whether the look was asking for something or only carrying something, the way a bag can be too heavy without asking you to take it. Here is what you have not told Carol. You drove past the address in October and in November. The second time you stopped. You sat in the car outside a council block on Annie's Lind Road for 11 minutes. You know it was 11 minutes because you watched the clock, and you looked at the building and you thought about Raymond in there, behind one of those windows, growing tomatoes on a balcony in the summers when there was sun. The pigeons on the sill. The quiet he never got used to. You thought about the Tuesday he looked at you. You thought about what a person looks like when they are carrying something too heavy and have been carrying it for long enough that they've stopped expecting anyone to notice. You drove home. You sat in your kitchen for a while. You made tea. You didn't drink. You thought about a Tuesday in the previous March when he told you he still set 2 plates, sometimes by mistake, just reached for 2 plates the way he'd always done, and you had said something kind and moved on to the next client because there was a queue, and it was 9:50 on a Tuesday morning, and this was not the place for that conversation, which was probably true and was also convenient. That is the thing you keep sitting with. The probably true. The also convenient. The way they overlap so completely that you can't see the join. The shift today runs 9 until 1. You are at the scales by 9:10 because the pre-packed parcels have run out earlier than expected, and Janet has asked you to portion the rice. You stand at the scales with the scoop and the bowl. The hall is filling up now, the sound of it, the trolley wheels, the low voices, the door opening and closing and the cold coming in each time and then closing out again. Someone has the radio on low in the back store. You can hear it but not quite make it out, just the rhythm of voices, the tone of it just below where the words become words. You put rice in the bowl. The display reads 400 gains. You put more rice in the bowl. The display reads Margaret. You stand there. You are aware of the sound of the hall around you, the trolley, the voices, the radio. You are aware of your hands on the scoop. You are aware of the cold coming in from the door. You put the scoop down. The display reads Margaret. Then it reads 612G. You finish the portion. You set it aside. You pick up the scoop again. At 11:15, the display reads Margaret for the longest it is yet. You are alone at the station for a moment, the nearest volunteer 3 meters away with her back to you, the nearest client not yet at your table. The hall sound continues around you. The radio. The trolley wheel. The door. You stand there, watch it. The letters are not large. The display is the size of a business card. The letters small and blocky, digital. Your name in those small, blocky letters, the same font it uses for grams and kilograms. No drama in the display itself. Just the information. You think, this is what transferred. You reach out and put your hand flat on the metal weighing surface. The display reads 61.4 kilograms. That is not your weight. You know your weight. That is not a number you recognize. The display reads Margaret. Then it reads 0. Another client arrives at your station. You pick up the scoop. You finish the shift. You carry it out to the end, the full 4 hours. You portion the rice and the pasta and the dried goods, and you smile at the clients, and you say good morning, and you help Mrs. Okafor with her heavy bag to the door, and you wash down the tables at the end, and you help Janet stack the chairs. Janet asks if you're all right, and you say yes, just tired, and she says it's the January ones that take it out of you, and you agree that it is. You drive home. You park outside your house. You sit in the car. The street is quiet. The light is already going, 4 o'clock in January, the sky the same gray as this morning and somehow grayer. The houses along the street with their lights coming on inside. Through the window of the house opposite, a television, a woman moving in a kitchen. Other people's lives, warm and lit and entirely indifferent to you, in the way that other people's lives are, which is not unkindness, it is just how it is. You think about calling Carol. You get your phone out. You think about what you would say. You think about how Carol's voice would sound when you said it, the shift in her, the worry coming in, the careful questions starting. How are you sleeping? Are you getting out enough? You think about what you would actually say if you said everything. That you drove past a dead man's flat twice, and the second time you sat outside it for 11 minutes, watching a building with lit windows and didn't go in and didn't leave. That the scales have been reading your name since November, and this afternoon you put your hand flat on the metal and stood there and let it finish, whatever it was doing. That you're not sure it was wrong. Maybe that is all haunting ever is, one absence filling another. You put the phone away. You go inside. You take off your coat. You stand in the kitchen. The back door is there at the far end, the same as always. The kitchen is empty, the same as always. The fridge hums. The pipes settle. You think you will go back. Of course you will go back. This is what you do. This is the structure. The Tuesday and Thursday of it, the being needed, the place that replaced the 31 years of classroom and the 7 years of Michael and the children who moved away and the life that had a shape before and has a different shape now. You will go back because not going back is not something you know how to do. You stand in the kitchen and the light outside is fully gone now and the kitchen light is on and you are the only person in this house. You put your hand flat on the kitchen counter, the same way you put it on the scales. The counter is just a counter. Formica, cool, slightly dusty at the far edge where you don't wipe every day. Nothing reads. Nothing shows. You press your palm down and feel the surface, and it gives back nothing except surface, which is what surfaces do, which is all they have ever done. You stand there.